Alright, we got our pieces made from the last video. Actually, let's grab a light. It's pretty dark in there. I got to grind these welds down that I'm about to show you, and then we'll probably give it a second pass. We got her all measured out. She's exactly where, this is exactly where it's got to be. You can see here, we had to peel a little bit off this, and that's a little bent down now, but that's part of the rocker. This is where they get fused together. The rocker goes under this piece. Now, on both sides, we have to cut these corners out and remake them. It's thick up here, but the metal's a little thin right down here. So we're going to come up a little high. We're going to remake that piece. And when we have that out, we're going to cut some of this away and repair these. As you can see, they welded okay, but it's a little soft here. I didn't, actually, that's pretty hard. But when we cut this off, we can kind of fix that and remake that with new metal and then cut our rockers out. So that'll be later when we're working on the outside of the car. But for now, we went right up this edge. And I mean, this is going to deviate here by almost nothing, so it's not going to affect anything. And then the rest of it is flanged in flush. So when we grind these off, it's pretty much flush. And again, that's not something that's exposed. So another thing we'll note, you can see all the scratches in it. That's 80 grit. Usually I do a 80 and then 180, but that should do. The thing is, you don't want to come in here trying to sand down in here after. So before we bent it, we ran the DA on it with some 80 just to make everything. And we did both sides, because this side's got to be done too. So that's our panel. And back here, we had a piece that came around. That was solid, and then we bent our piece around. We pushed it in until everything went tight. But mainly, we knew that this lip here had to go right inside of that weld line. So we pushed it in, welded that. So basically, that'll be okay. What we didn't weld was that little piece at the bottom. We could have, but we're actually going to drill a hole right at the back there so that any liquid that sits in here, it can drip out there. They kind of have these, and they look like they're halfway punched out, and then there's a little bit attached. I don't know if that's for drainage or what that's for, but a couple small holes will allow things to drain when they condensate. You just got to be smart where they go. And the other side is basically the same. We've got it on same way, same rod up in here that has to be fixed. Now this plate was good, we welded to it, but we're going to cut this edge off from the outside and put a piece in and then put a backing plate on. So we're going to make that in two little pieces and then put this outer piece. As you can see, it needs to be replaced. It's good here, but not here. We'll come up a little higher. We'll just remake this whole piece down to here. And we'll be able to match it up to the rocker and all that. And, you know, we'll cut the pieces off gently so we can kind of bend them and make it look stock. So at least when it's done, seam sealed, prime painted, and the car's finished, when you open the door, we want it to have that same little dip and then the rocker coming from underneath it as stock as we can. And I mean, if we're close is close enough. If you weld this too fast, this could sink, but I think we're okay. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. So we're good there. And I don't know if it would matter, but you don't want to make the wall get closer, because at some point somebody might want to put some kind of window in. Now I believe this window rolls down, but this is where the latch mount, or the crank mount mounts up here. Sorry. So, and this is just an access panel. I know on some of the Nomads, one glass slides over the other one, but on these, this back here would be a solid mounted glass, probably in a rubber or whatever. But here, it's just like out of a back door. Goes straight up and down. But yeah, so we're getting there. Got new steel all down here, all down here. This is all new. Rockers we're not doing till the body's on the frame and later. And that plate there gets welded to the corner. That all gets welded. And of course, corner there. Now here we still got to repair. Then there's two little corners we got to jam in at the end from underneath. And I made them a little short, as you can see right there, because I couldn't really tell what went there. But after we test fit it back on, I can fix that from the outside and put two little plates in there. And that's all buried in behind the fenders. So again, if the welds are showing or whatever, it's really not going to matter. We had to cut out up in here and weld a piece in. She sank in a bit on me, so I can't weld that flat. But there's a little bit of a hollow here, so this will actually, we'll body work that. We'll just go real quick with that. It's going to be very, very thin. And I mean, I am going to grind this one more time. But I can feel that there's a low spot right in here. And it is what it is. It was kind of deformed to begin with, and I probably made it worse welding it. But there's a plate to reinforce these, and it actually comes way up like so. And it's welded through the back, so we're good enough. We're solid. This is solid, and I'm pretty happy with it where it is right now. As you can see, when you clean off the rust on this car, it cleans right up pretty good. We're not going to go too crazy, because once this car is together and the body's all solid, we'll do the outside body work and just prime the spots, because we're going to have to wait till spring. And we're not going to be sandblasting the roof and the outer quarters. I'd rather do that by hand. But what I want to sandblast is basically the pillars, all that junk up in there. Now, of course, once it's on the rotisserie, we'll put the car sideways. We'll scrape all that off. And the other option would be to encapsulate it in Por 15. But I don't know if that's the right thing to do. On this particular car, like, this stuff is all super solid, but it has that coating of surface on it, and it's a bugger to sand all that stuff. Like, even all this stuff in here, we can give that all a sandblast and make that right. We're gonna have to cut the top section out of this all the way back so far. We're gonna have to put a piece in there, and on this side you got to do it up here and a piece back there. And sometimes when you got to do a lot of pieces, it's just as easy to cut the whole piece out and put a whole long strip in. So we'll see what happens there when we get there. What would have been nice, and I was almost tempted to do it, I don't know that the time constraint and the budget would allow, but if this was a car that I wanted to go high end on, we'd actually cut this up in here, and I would remove that whole panel out of the car. Then we could do all our repairs. We could clean and treat both sides, set it back, weld it back in the car. Now, it sounds crazy, but right here, this metal laps on. You can see there's a lip right here. So if we, the welds are hard to find, because it's just little pins. But I mean, we could separate that, or we could cut it on an angle super thin in here and then just weld it back on. The thing is, you got to take your time weld and all that with the heat and stuff. But I mean, it's super thick, it's healthy. A guy could probably do the Por 15 in here and call it a day. Like, it is that good. So anyway, the main reason I want to sandblast, not just up around the roof, but you see this. That's just a mess. It's going to take forever to clean that up and get all the junk off it. Then you got to sand it and treat it and sand it and treat it. Like, we're going to sandblast the dash all up underneath the firewall. The other side of the firewall, there's all these weird little crevices. Around, there's a trench that goes all the way around the windshield. You can never quite get in there really well. We could do the Por 15 thing or the DOM 16. We could do an acid treatment and then clean it and then epoxy it. I just assume do all those crevices, and because we have so much window, like, it's not a small car to do, there's a lot to be sandblasted. Like, even back here, you open the tailgate and that side going up, I don't know if you can see that. It's got a lot of surface rust through the paint, so I'd rather just sandblast that away. Then on the outside we got this little patch, and then there's one up here but on the other side. We'll repair those. You get the idea. But again, like, how do you get down in here and down in here? So it'd be way better to sandblast that out all up around that ridge. Not too bad, but there's areas getting in there, getting up in here. This is something where if we shot peen it and it goes a little bit out of whack, it's already kind of wavy and out of whack, so it won't matter. So that's why I say I'd like to really get this all sandblasted and cleaned up as close as we can, and then epoxy it, and then we're good. So there you go. Basically repairing, like I said before, all the bottom edge. You know, like that last 6 inches, I guess, of the bottom of the car needed quite a bit of work. And because we're going to redo the lower quarters out there and the rockers, whole bottom area of this car is going to be like brand new. Super solid, good metal. This is heavy, it's 18 gauge. Now I realize that the thickness of this, it's not the same. This is lighter. I thought it was 19, but I'm actually thinking it might just be 20 gauge. So we've put more strength into the car than what had to be there. Another thing we can look at actually right here, this is bent in a little bit, but this actually will line up nice. And if this is out a little bit, and it may be, this is the one we had trouble with, it seems good to about here, and it gets just gently wider. But now that this is welded and solid in place, we can just hammer this and it'll lie in and it'll be just fine. When our floor goes down, I'm sure those will pinch together pretty close to where it was factory. Close enough. And I mean, these cars weren't exactly built great at the factory anyway, so we're going to be so close that it's going to be a pretty good solid car when we're done. Anyway, that's second or third video for today, so that's it for me. I'm done today. Thanks for watching.